All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're tackling Bitcoin.
Sounds good.
But not just, Bitcoin in general.
Right.
We're going deep on what went down in 2024
Yeah.
and where things might be headed in 2025.
Interesting.
So our main source here is this really in-depth analysis of Bitcoin's 2024 performance.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we've got some pretty bold predictions for the future. We'll be digging into all the things driving Bitcoin adoption.
I'm sure there are many.
Oh, yeah. And of course, we got to talk about the price, right?
Of course. That's the big question.
Exactly. So we're covering everything: Wall Street, nation states.
Wow.
And get this. You might be surprised how many people are holding on to their Bitcoin.
I'm intrigued. So what happened in 2024? Did Bitcoin finally hit that magical 100,000 mark?
You bet it did. In 2024, Bitcoin smashed through the $100,000 ceiling for the first time.
Wow. That's a huge milestone. But was it just another one of those crazy pumps driven by, all the meme stock hype?
Nope, this wasn't some pump and dump scheme. This was different.
Oh.
This was driven by institutional investors, the big players.
Interesting. So they finally decided Bitcoin was worth their time.
They realized it deserved a spot at the big kids' table.
So after years of being seen as this fringe asset, Bitcoin finally got its moment of validation.
It's like Bitcoin finally grew up and got its suit and tie. And it's not just about recognition. These institutions are putting their money where their mouth is.
You're talking about the Bitcoin ETFs, right?
Exactly. We saw titans like BlackRock and Fidelity not just create Bitcoin ETFs, but absolutely crush it with them.
That's quite a statement from some of the biggest names in finance. Do you have any specific example?
Oh, absolutely. Look at BlackRock. Their Bitcoin ETF blew up, reaching a mind-blowing $50 billion in assets.
$50 billion.
I know, right? And get this. It even surpassed their gold ETF, the one they've had for over 20 years. And it did it faster and with more value.
Wow, that's a clear signal that they're betting big on Bitcoin.
It tells you that the smart money is shifting. They're seeing Bitcoin as more than just a gamble.
It's like they've realized Bitcoin isn't just a fad, it's a fundamental shift in the financial landscape.
Exactly. And that begs the question, why are these institutions suddenly so keen on Bitcoin?
It's not just one thing, it's a combination of factors.
Like what? Give us the rundown.
Well, for starters, it offers access to a whole new market. You've got investors who might not be interested in traditional assets, but they're intrigued by Bitcoin.
It's like tapping into a new generation of investors. They grew up with the internet, they get the whole digital thing. Decentralized finance doesn't scare them.
It's their native language. But it's not just about reaching new markets. There's also the whole inflation hedge angle.
Right, because with all the worry about inflation and the value of, regular currencies going down, Bitcoin looks pretty good.
Exactly. Bitcoin's fixed supply makes it attractive for those who want to protect their wealth.
It's like a digital gold rush, where people are searching for a safe haven from the storms of traditional finance.
A great analogy. But let's be honest, no one on Wall Street is going to ignore the profit potential either. Bitcoin's price performance has been hard to dismiss.
True. Those gains have been pretty tempting.
They have. But what we're seeing is more than just a chase for quick returns.
You think so?
I do. There's a growing understanding of the tech behind Bitcoin, its power to disrupt the financial system, its role as a hedge against inflation, and even censorship.
So it's not just about making a quick buck, it's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the potential for a fundamental shift in the way we think about money.
And this excitement wasn't just limited to Wall Street, right? Nation-states started making some big moves in the Bitcoin space, too.
Absolutely. We saw countries starting to add Bitcoin to their national reserves.
Like El Salvador, right? They've been all over the news with their Bitcoin strategy.
They've been leading the charge, that's for sure. They now hold over 6,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They were early believers.
And their gamble seems to be paying off.
It has, in many ways. Their bold move has sparked a global conversation about the role of Bitcoin in national economies. And they're not alone. We're seeing activity in the Middle East and other regions where countries are exploring how Bitcoin can diversify their reserves and give them more financial independence.
It's like we're witnessing a power shift on a global scale. And Bitcoin is right at the center of it.
It's a fascinating development. As more nations embrace Bitcoin, its legitimacy grows, and its potential to challenge the old financial systems becomes more apparent.
And it's not just nation-states jumping on board. Publicly traded companies are getting in on the action, too.
You're right. We're seeing companies adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets, and it's not just a small amount.
MicroStrategy with Michael Saylor at the helm is a prime example.
They've gone all in on Bitcoin.
They hold a massive amount, something like 440,000 Bitcoin.
It's a bold strategy, but it seems to be working for them.
And they're not the only ones. Remember the Japanese company Meta Planet?
Yes, their stock went through the roof
Yeah.
after they started buying up Bitcoin.
It's proof that integrating Bitcoin into a business strategy can pay off big time.
And it's not just about passively holding Bitcoin. They're finding innovative ways to use it in their operations. From managing their finances to improving their supply chains, Bitcoin is changing how companies do business.
It's a whole new playbook for corporate finance.
Yeah.
And even the Bitcoin mining companies are getting in on the action.
Right. They're holding on to more of the Bitcoin they mine.
Instead of immediately selling it for cash, they're seeing it as a long-term investment.
It shows that even those at the heart of the Bitcoin mining industry believe in its long-term value. They're aligning themselves with the wider Bitcoin ecosystem.
So we've got institutions, corporations, even nations embracing Bitcoin. But let's not forget about the individual investors, the people who have been with Bitcoin from the beginning.
The true believers.
They're holding strong.
They are. And the numbers are pretty astounding.
50% of all Bitcoin in circulation hasn't moved in 2 years.
Think about that. Half of all the Bitcoin out there is just sitting tight.
It shows incredible conviction. They're not swayed by the ups and downs of the market.
They believe in Bitcoin's potential and are willing to ride out the volatility. It's called hodling.
Hodling.
Yeah, it basically means holding onto your Bitcoin for the long haul.
Interesting. So how does this hodling impact Bitcoin's value?
Well, think of it like a rare collectible, like a vintage baseball card. The fewer cards there are, and the more tightly they're held by collectors, the more valuable they become.
So the same principle applies to Bitcoin.
Exactly. With so much Bitcoin being held, it effectively reduces the available supply.
And with demand increasing.
You got it. It creates upward pressure on the price.
Basic economics. Limited supply plus rising demand equals higher prices.
Precisely. That's why Bitcoin's often called digital gold.
It's like a digital gold rush, but instead of panning for gold, people are holding on to their Bitcoin, waiting for it to appreciate in value.
That's a great way to put it. And the ranks of these hodlers are growing.
Especially in the U.S., right?
The U.S. has seen a surge in Bitcoin ownership. It's now at 40% of Americans.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
It is. And what's particularly interesting is the increasing participation of women.
That's great to hear.
Now, 1 out of every 3 women in America owns crypto. It's becoming more mainstream.
And this trend isn't limited to the U.S., it's global, right?
Absolutely. Worldwide, over 550 million people now own Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. It's a global movement, a digital revolution in how we think about and use money.
It's remarkable how far Bitcoin has come. What do you think is driving this widespread adoption?
It's a confluence of factors. There's increased awareness, more positive media coverage, and the power of word of mouth.
People see their friends and family benefiting from Bitcoin, and they want in on the action.
Exactly. It becomes more tangible when you see someone you trust actually profiting from it.
And let's not forget the impact of endorsements from influential figures, people like Stanley Druckenmiller and Larry Fink.
Big names like that talking positively about Bitcoin, it legitimizes it in the eyes of many who were skeptical before.
It's like a seal of approval from the financial establishment.
It gives people the confidence to take Bitcoin seriously.
And speaking of shifting perceptions, we can't ignore the impact of politics on Bitcoin's journey in 2024. Remember Donald Trump's campaign?
The first Bitcoin president.
He really tapped into that growing interest in Bitcoin, promising to protect Bitcoin ownership. He even hinted at creating a national strategic Bitcoin reserve.
It was a bold move. And he actually followed through on some of those promises.
He did. Appointing Paul Atkins, a known Bitcoin advocate, as SEC chairman sent shockwaves through the crypto community.
That was huge. Atkins' understanding of Bitcoin and his belief that the U.S. should lead in the crypto space could lead to a more favorable regulatory environment.
It was a clear sign that the U.S. was taking Bitcoin seriously.
It was a signal to the world that Bitcoin was here to stay.
And it wasn't just Atkins. The appointment of David Sachs as the AI and crypto czar and Bo Hines leading on crypto policy further solidified the administration's commitment to a supportive environment for Bitcoin and the crypto industry.
Having that pro-Bitcoin team in key positions really set the stage for the U.S. to play a major role in shaping the global crypto landscape.
It's like they rolled out the red carpet for Bitcoin.
And it could have a ripple effect, encouraging other nations to follow suit and create a more open and competitive global financial system.
So 2024 was a year of massive change for Bitcoin. It gained mainstream acceptance, attracted big money, and even found support in the political arena.
It was a pivotal year, setting the stage for what could be an even more significant year for Bitcoin in 2025.
And before we dive into those predictions, we need to look at a couple of key events from 2024 that could significantly impact Bitcoin's trajectory. One of those events was the Bitcoin halving.
Right, the halving. It happens approximately every 4 years and is a major event in the Bitcoin lifecycle. It cuts the rate of new Bitcoin creation in half.
So, for the average person holding Bitcoin, what does that mean? How does it impact the market?
It all comes back to supply and demand. By reducing the rate of new Bitcoin creation, the halving restricts the supply while demand continues to grow.
So, less Bitcoin is being created, but more people want it.
Exactly. Historically, that has put upward pressure on Bitcoin's price.
It sounds like a controlled scarcity mechanism built into the system.
Precisely. It ensures that Bitcoin remains a scarce digital asset, much like gold. And that scarcity, combined with increasing demand, could create a tailwind for Bitcoin's price.
It seems like a perfect storm is brewing, one that could push Bitcoin even further into the mainstream.
There are a lot of factors pointing in that direction.
But we all know predicting the future, especially in a volatile market like Bitcoin, is tricky business.
You're absolutely right. There's no crystal ball. But what we can say with certainty is that the shift toward global Bitcoin adoption is undeniable.
It's a fundamental change in how we think about money and finance, and Bitcoin is at the forefront of that change.
It is. And it's only going to get more interesting from here.
We've only just scratched the surface in this first part of our deep dive.
There's so much more to explore.
But before we move on to the experts' predictions for 2025 and beyond, I want to ask you, our listeners, a question. What does all this mean for you?
That's a great question.
How do you see Bitcoin fitting into your own financial plans and your understanding of the future of money? It's something to think about as we continue our journey into the world of Bitcoin.
It's fascinating how Bitcoin, seems to change people's perspectives on money. It's not just about like the price going up or down.
Right.
It's more about a fundamental shift in how they see, the whole financial system.
Yeah, I've heard that from friends who are into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They start off maybe thinking about profits.
Yeah.
But then something clicks. They start looking at the world differently.
It's a journey, for sure. Often it begins with that speculative mindset.
The get-rich-quick thing.
Yeah, exactly. But then they dig deeper, learned about the tech.
The philosophy behind it.
Yeah, all of that. And then, boom, it's like a light bulb moment.
They see the potential for disruption.
Shaking up the whole system.
Creating a fairer, more transparent world.
Exactly. It goes beyond just an investment.
It's like a belief system almost.
It is. It's like joining a movement, a community.
Of people who share that vision for a different future.
Yeah. And that shared belief, it drives them. They hold on to their Bitcoin.
They ride out the volatility.
Through thick and thin, they become true believers.
It's amazing how an asset can do that.
I know. You don't see that with, stocks and bonds.
Not at all. It's the power of ideas, I guess.
It really is. Bitcoin represents more than just money. It's about decentralization, transparency, individual control.
Those values resonate with a lot of people, especially now.
Especially now. And it's not just individuals.
You're thinking about those companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets.
Right. It's more than a financial decision. It's a statement.
They're showing they believe in Bitcoin's future.
Aligning themselves with a more decentralized system. And that message, it reaches everyone. Investors, customers, even employees.
It's like they're saying, we're not playing by the old rules anymore.
Exactly. We're embracing a new paradigm.
And there's a powerful message. It challenges the status quo.
Makes people question their assumptions.
It's interesting how the media's view of Bitcoin has changed, too.
Oh, yeah. Remember the early days?
All about the dark web, Silk Road.
Bitcoin was portrayed as a tool for criminals.
A threat to the financial system.
It was the Wild West of finance. Mysterious and dangerous.
And back then, it was easy to dismiss.
Sure. But then reputable institutions started getting involved.
Individuals.
And the narrative started to shift.
It became harder for the media to ignore Bitcoin's growing legitimacy.
The skeptics couldn't drown out the voices of those who saw its potential.
And now we're seeing a more balanced discussion.
More nuanced, more informed.
It's not just about price anymore.
It's about the broader impact. Global finance, social justice.
It's pretty amazing to think about. A technology once seen as shady, now discussed as a solution to some of the world's biggest problems.
Talk about a turnaround. It's a testament to the power of innovation.
And the persistence of those early believers.
Speaking of belief, it's wild that even Donald Trump embraced crypto.
Right. You wouldn't think of him as a tech disruptor.
It was surprising, for sure.
But it kind of makes sense when you think about it. Trump's always been a disruptor.
Challenging the establishment.
In Bitcoin, that's what it does.
It challenges central banks, governments, the whole financial system.
It's decentralized, outside anyone's control.
And that message resonated with a lot of people who felt let down by the system.
So yeah, maybe it was a smart political move.
Maybe. But it had real consequences, too. Those appointments he made.
Paul Atkins, David Sachs, Bo Hines.
Right. That was a signal that the U.S. was getting serious about Bitcoin and blockchain.
It was a turning point in policy.
It was a sign that they were ready to embrace the future of finance.
And that could encourage other countries to follow suit?
Leading to a more open, competitive, global financial system.
It's fascinating to imagine the implications.
What would a world without traditional currencies look like?
A world where transactions are faster, more transparent, and less prone to manipulation.
Where individuals have more control over their money.
It's a bold vision.
But Bitcoin makes it possible.
And that vision is gaining traction worldwide.
We can't forget, though, we're still in the early stages.
It's a transformation in progress.
There will be bumps along the road.
Challenges, setbacks, unexpected turns.
But the potential is huge. Bitcoin isn't just a digital currency.
It's so much more than that.
It's a catalyst for change.
A tool for empowerment.
The way to reshape the financial system.
And that's why it's crucial to stay informed.
To have these conversations.
To critically evaluate the opportunities and challenges.
This is a story that's still being written.
And we're all part of it.
Our choices today will shape the future.
The future of finance, the world we live in.
So stay curious, stay engaged.
The future is in our hands.
Let's make it a good one.
You know, we've talked a lot about Wall Street and governments and all these big players, but it's easy to forget about the average person. Where do they fit into all of this?
Well, that's what makes Bitcoin so revolutionary, right? It's not just about changing the system from the top down. It's about empowering the individual.
Giving people more control over their own money.
Exactly. You're not at the mercy of banks or governments anymore.
You can't just have your account frozen or your savings devalued on a whim.
With Bitcoin, you're in control. You can send money to anyone in the world directly. No middleman needed.
And that's especially powerful for people in countries with unstable currencies or limited access to banking.
It's a game changer for them. Imagine dealing with hyperinflation or unreliable banks every day.
That's a reality for millions of people.
And Bitcoin offers a way out, a way to protect your wealth and participate in the global economy.
It's a tool for financial inclusion.
And it levels the playing field. It's not just about practicality, though. It's about opportunity.
The opportunity to build something new, to innovate.
Exactly. We're seeing decentralized finance, new forms of digital art, entirely new business models.
It reminds me of the early days of the internet. That same sense of excitement, of limitless possibilities.
It feels like we're on the verge of something huge.
Yeah.
A new era.
It's tempting to get caught up in the hype, though. We have to be realistic. There are still challenges ahead for Bitcoin.
Of course.
Yeah.
Volatility, regulation, scalability, security.
Those are big hurdles.
They are. The Bitcoin community needs to find solutions if it wants to achieve that decentralized future.
But they've overcome challenges before. They're a resilient bunch.
Very resilient. They're passionate, innovative, and they keep pushing forward.
And ultimately, that's what it's all about, right? Building a better system that benefits everyone.
A more equitable, transparent, accessible system.
That's a goal worth striving for. I think the takeaway from all of this is that Bitcoin is so much more than just a digital currency.
It's a movement, a philosophy, a catalyst for change.
And we're all part of this story, whether we realize it or not. The decisions we make today will shape the future.
So stay informed, stay engaged, and stay curious.
The future of finance is being written right now, and we all have a role to play. That's it for this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin. Thanks for joining us. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries. Until next time.